back. I'm Tedward, and today, thanks to Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts, we're driving a 1967 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. It's a 327 cubic inch carbureted V8 engine, and wait for it, a 3-speed automatic transmission. Not exactly what you think about when you're thinking of classic Americana. Now, I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be a 2-speed power glide, and that this 3-speed must be an after-the-fact update. So although I'm not 100% positive, I do think that this is a 3-speed turbo hydromatic transmission from the C3 that was designed to update this C2's drivability. Now, the base car would have been a 327 with a 3-speed manual. There's a litany of options that you can go through to make these more individual, and I'm sure every Corvette owner watching, or every Corvette owner you know, knows exactly how many of their spec was produced. But I do know that these automatics were a lot more rare than the manuals, because from what I understand, the automatic transmissions were kind of expensive, and probably people weren't really ready for that in their sports cars. Now, this one's been cared for a little bit. It's not a full restoration by any means, but it's definitely updated and nice interior. There's no way. These seats are gorgeous. This has to have been reupholstered. These look fantastic. If it's fully original, then kudos to whoever took care of this thing. But I am so in love with the design of these C2s. They look phenomenal. Now, the 63s are the most notable for having the split window rear glass. So it's got that pillar back here. It's funny because when that went away in 64, people with 63s converted them to this to look more updated, to look like the newer cars. And now that's probably one of the most desirable features on any Corvette ever, to have a split window Vette. That's a big deal. Now, you could also get these with a 427, the big block, and those are pretty darn good. But this 327 has 300 horsepower and does the job. You'll notice side pipes. Yes, we love side pipes. Now, I'm not positive, but I think those were dealer installed options, because when you get under the car, you can actually still see the cutouts in the cross brace that where those pipes would come through to have the dual exhaust out the back. So anyway, the Corvette nerds can tell me in the comments what that was all about. And I got to be careful because this was running and we need to burn our legs. The interior of these cars are gorgeous, and I am just so thrilled to see big analog gauges, beautiful typeface, beautiful red needles, good contrast. But most notably, this clock is gorgeous, and the smooth second hand looks fantastic. And it's large. It's a large clock for a car of this period. Now, let's take a look in the glove box. Look how cool that is. You get your tire pressure set here. So up to vehicle load limit, front 24, rear 24. We'll talk about the tires in a second, but I did find this little sticker, and apparently this clock was professionally restored by John Dvorsky, Corvette Clocks by Roger. All right, well, thanks, Roger. I guess now we know where to go to restore our Corvette clocks. There is no trunk, so storage space is limited to whatever you can fit in the passenger compartment or behind the seats. Now, there's plenty of room, but it's not the most convenient thing in the world, because if you have stuff that you don't want rattling around, you're going to have to tie it down a little bit. Let's get under the hood. And there she is in all its orange glory. Chevrolet orange, we love to see it. And it's a 327. It's just turbo fire on the air cleaner and 300 horsepower. So that's pretty good. Fits nicely in here, and it's hard to believe that you could fit a big block in here. There's still a little bit of room, but man, once you put some headers on that thing, it can get wide. But one of the most notable features on these cars are the pop-up headlights, or should I say rollback headlights. They're vacuum actuated, so let's get it started so we can actually move them. To get it started, we're sitting here, gonna give it a little bit of throttle. It's not the happiest car in a hot start, so. Oh yes. There we go. Okay, now to get the headlights up, you don't just pull the light button. No. You use this switch down here. So first, let's roll the headlights up with this switch. So we'll pull this back, and then you'll notice they'll go one and then the other, essentially, always the way the Corvette lights go. They roll back, and then we can pull our lights. And there you have it. That's the style at night. Looking pretty good. And I like this because unlike the C3s, which pop way up out of the front of the car, these don't look like they have a totally traumatic impact on aerodynamics. Granted, I do not think this was designed in a wind tunnel, so I think you're screwed either way. And in proper old car fashion, high beams are down here. So that's on the floor. Corvettes are famously fiberglass to keep weight down. That's a cool thing. And if you were, for example, buying a Bizzarini, which is $1 million car now, the fiberglass lightweight examples are far more expensive than the standard cars. So it is cool that Corvettes are all fiberglass, because that was pretty trick at the time to keep the weight down. Up front, we have a 205 section tire. It's a 205 75 R15. Loads of sidewall, pretty safe on the potholes, same front and rear, and four-wheel disc brakes. Very nice. Gives me a little bit of confidence on the braking. And I love the way these doors open, because you have such a large door frame here. It kind of wraps around, almost Ford GT-like, but Ford GT light. Instead of coming all the way to the center of the roof, you only get a little piece of it here. So I say we get out there and go for a drive. For safety, I do have a lap belt, kind of nice. And for 1967, they moved the parking brake, the handbrake, from under the dash to in the center. So this is definitely familiar to those of you who are a little more familiar with the C3 world. Oh yes. Some of these bumps, it's riding really nicely, and that's probably thanks to the fact that there's Bilstein dampers in the car. That is a nice upgrade, and it's also just interesting to see, you know, the blue and yellow Bilstein stuff in an American classic. Great. Now, the one thing that's a little interesting about it is the fact that the steering is a little truck-like. It kind of feels like you put in, and then it kind of just suddenly follows. But it does handle well. It does, I mean, relatively well. You know, it's getting me around the corner. I'm not afraid of it. Position in this car is great. I feel like I'm low enough. I have great visibility over the hood. The steering wheel, although enormous, helps me a little bit leverage with the steering, gives me nice light steering, but it also opens up this huge gap in the dashboard to see these giant gauges. There's no question about what's going on in front of me with all of the information. It's great that this is just available information and you're not fighting and scrambling to see around the steering wheel, because that is sometimes a problem in classic cars. The side pipes give you such an extra experience because everything's happening right next to your ears rather than behind you. sound of a small block Chevy. This is fantastic. Indicator lights actually show both sides to tell us which side our blinker is on. May not sound interesting to you, but some old cars only have one light that will just show the fact that the indicator is on at all, but not necessarily which direction. Goes a long way in this thing. Definitely some wind noise. That's all right though. I told you, I don't think it's very aerodynamic. But other than some wind noise, it's pretty happy on the highway. I suppose you could use an overdrive or a fourth gear. But hey, she's chugging along nicely at 65 miles an hour. I don't think I'd recommend doing long highway drives in it, but you can do it. Notice there's no mirror for the passenger side. Pretty common in those days. A little annoying, but always good to give the over-the-shoulder look regardless. And you've got all that glass, which helps with visibility. This engine can definitely get the vet off the line, and this transmission actually does a pretty good job of putting the power down where it needs to be. But I gotta say, like, cruising around town with a nice, healthy dose of low-end torque, that's where this thing shines. That's where I would want to be using this pretty regularly, and I'm very much enjoying my time driving it. I was always told that C2s just handle like trucks, and yeah, I mean, it's truck-ish. Cool Supra, very nice. All right, hey. It's not hard to drive. It's not unpleasant to drive. It's just not going to be a modern sports car that you're going to chuck around into corners. I mean, sure, you'll see some people doing some wild stuff at like Goodwood Revival with these, and that's, you know, probably the only use case when you're talking about like vintage racing with one of these. That's not the point. The point is not to bring this to the track. I mean, you could certainly go and have some fun at the drag strip. And I've got to say, I'm pleasantly surprised with this transmission. I scoffed at it when I saw it. I said, oh no, an auto. But it's good. It's nice to drive. I'm having a good time. So, I'm going to go make some noise, chug my way back to Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. I hope you enjoyed a lovely and potentially nostalgic drive in this 1967 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.